All right, number 6 was Lamar Miller. Oh, Lamar Miller.
My boy. That's my boy, Lamar Miller.
Lamar Miller, the man who
is he on
finished
his
6th,
consistency?
17th. He was the 6th. This is why some players, they help you if you play them at the right time, and they hurt you if they don't.
He was consistently inconsistent.
I mean, to finish 17th in consistency as the number 6 running back is just amazing. There's no player with more huge question marks above his head than Lamar Miller. I mean, he's a guy who's probably not coming back to Miami, first of all. So landing in a new spot, we know that's hard to do anyways for a running back. Could he land in a good place like Dallas? Sure, he could. Is he good enough to take a workload in a new place and give you number 6 numbers again with maybe better than 17th consistency? Probably not. I don't know.
I think he is.
I think if he were to go to one of 2 spots, he would be great. And anywhere else, even though I love him, it's just not, whenever a guy changes teams, I am much more skeptical than hopeful. I don't normally go, oh, this is such a great opportunity. I go, there's a lot of questions. We don't know.
Where are those 2 places for you?
Well, one is clearly Dallas.
Okay.
But the other, whew.
Because I have a team in my head.
That excites me, that I think is a somewhat real possibility, would be the New England Patriots. Because he is a great pass blocker. He is good in the pass receiving game. And he's a great running back. And they've dealt with a lot of injury this year. They're in division. Bill Belichick has had plenty of time to scout him out. We've seen him steal people from the
Yeah, but Belichick's really smart, so he'll see what I see in him.
Yeah, well, and you might be right, but that proves the point, though, if you believe Belichick is smart, that if he goes out and grabs Lamar Miller and says, hey, you're using him wrong, give him to me, then I'll be excited. Anything else other than that, I'm probably going to be down on
I don't think the money's there for him to go to the Patriots, but I got
if he
one
did,
team.
I agree with you.
I got one team for you. The New York Jets.
Sure. With Ivory as a free agent?
Yeah.
Powell as a free agent?
If Miller goes and becomes the main running back for the Jets, you got him like that.
Sure. That's a great potential landing spot.
I will say this on Lamar Miller. He is very, very inconsistent, and a lot of that was the usage of the Dolphins. We know that. Some of that was on him in certain games. But as far as you have to go, well, who should the onus really be on? And Pro Football Focus, they're a great company. They just take the game film and they rate people on every play and every game, good, bad, or otherwise, just individually. And he was the number 5 best overall running back according to their grades when you consider pass blocking, catching the ball, and running the ball. He is a really good running back in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm very soured by the way the team treated him. I don't feel like I have any clear lens to look through. So, I mean,
the nice
they
thing about
never
him,
gave me one.
The nice thing about him is that I don't think his draft position's ever going to be that high because there's a lot of sour with Lamar Miller.
Right.
And so,
look, at the end of the day, he finished number 6. So.
Exactly. And you don't want a guy as inconsistent as him as your number 1 back. But if you can get him as your number 2 back, a guy that can win you weeks, that's great.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to we got 4 more names. We'll get in on this episode, and then we'll get into next. On the next episode, we'll take 11 through the rest. The next guy on the list,
David Johnson. Woohoo!
Wow.
I would have got in on that, but I was taking a drink.
What surprises me about his numbers is that he was the 9th most consistent running back from a per-week scoring standpoint, which is bewildering. Because he wasn't the running back.
You're forgetting how many touchdowns he was scoring early.
I am choosing to forget that, I guess. Chris Johnson was the running back. It was David Johnson was the 3rd string running back. This was a Bruce Arians offense that said, yeah, the young guy sits. But I still remember from the first week of the season, he was the fastest clocked player when they do those, next-gen stats. He returned that kickoff. It was 22.5 miles an hour or something like that. Look, David Johnson is a pile of talent on a good offense.
Yeah, and watching the Cardinals these last few weeks, you can see that he's become indispensable. When you take him off the field...
Becoming dispensable? You mean indispensable?
No, that's what I said.
He said he's become indispensable.
Oh, I heard becoming dispensable.
Yeah. No. He's become indispensable. And
you can't withstand victories if a guy becoming...
He is not a Pez dispenser.
When he's not on the field and they put in anyone else, whether it's Andre Ellington or Stephon Taylor, whoever it is, it's like the team stops moving. And if you give the ball to someone else, it's like regret time. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Chris Johnson. This could be muddy water next year if Chris Johnson is back, and I expect that he will be.
I don't expect him back.
I'm going to side with Jay on this. I think he will be back. I think they loved what he did in the locker room and on the field, and he didn't get taken out by bad play. He got taken out by injury.
So if he's back, who's the starter?
It'll be Chris Johnson.
No, I agree. I think it'll be Chris Johnson and David Johnson as the number 2.
Even if he's back, it'll still be David Johnson. If he comes back, first off, he's not under contract. So
Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Chris Johnson. Right. So he's going to have to take no money. I mean, Steve Keim is a crafty general manager and he works the budget very well, and he's not going to give Chris Johnson money after they've seen what David Johnson can do.
I will agree with the fact that, I will agree with that. And most of the groupthink out there is betting on him not being back. That's why you see David Johnson as high as you do in most of the early listings. I've seen him as high as 4 on pre way too early rankings. Because if he's the starter, let's say Chris Johnson's not back. I mean, this is a team that's 13-3.
Yeah, high
powerful
scoring
offense. Should be able to do it.
Ball. I mean, I wanted to ask the question: if Chris Johnson is not back, who do you draft? Todd Gurley or David Johnson next year in a redraft?
Ooh, man.
Or even, I guess, in a keeper setting. Even you got 2 rookies this year coming in.
Look, if both were endorsed by their head coaches as starters, but obviously Gurley is so if David Johnson's endorsed, any form of PPR, half point or full, it's David Johnson. I think because they involve him enough in the passing game to make him extremely valuable. You mix the team plus that. I have to get on board with that.
Yeah, at standard, I'd probably still lean with Gurley, just because of his. I think he's got the physical makeup to grind it out year after year. But
mind you, he had also 104 more carries than David Johnson did this year. I know David obviously can't speak to the beginning half of the season, but what else do we want to know about David Johnson? Because he had a big disparity with top and bottom defenses.
Huge disparity.
Yep.
He probably one of the widest gaps.
But his is difficult because of the sample size where, I mean, you go to week 1, like we said, he's not the starting running back. However, he had 1 catch for 55 yards and a touchdown, so he put up a pretty solid fantasy week, which is why he's so high in the consistency rankings, is he's just sneaking in these touchdowns here and there. So his splits of top versus bottom is very hard to do because he only had.
It's not worth looking just at the stats.
Right. He only had 4 weeks as the feature back because the 5th week everyone got pulled the last week of the season against Seattle.
Yeah. Here's a great point for those raw numbers. Weeks 10 and 11, you played 2 of clearly the top half Ds in Seattle and in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. In those 2 combined games, he got 2 total carries. So you can't really blame him
3
for his numbers being down.
No. Oh, no, you're right, 2.
Yeah.
Should have done way more with those.
Come on, David Johnson.
Come on, David. All right. These next 2 guys are both in the free agent situation. You got Chris Ivory at 8. You got Matt Forte at number 9. I see a lot of similarities between these guys, not necessarily on the field in terms of how they play, but in terms of age and where they could land. You know, Jason spoke to the fact that there's a lot of question that comes into mind when you switch teams. I don't know if I would expect either of these guys to be in the top 20 next year, unfortunately.
I agree. Again, we spoke to this with Lamar Miller, but aside from those elite landing spots, almost anywhere else, I'm not going to trust that change to draft them where they finished this year. This year, they were in the role that got them to this spot, and we don't know going into next year what that role will be. I don't love free agent running backs, and when we look at the history of, tell me free agent running backs that have changed teams and been great, it's
the one that pops into my mind is Michael Turner. He had that humongous year, but he was a backup in San Diego, hadn't had a chance, then shows up in Atlanta, explodes. But not a guy that was great on one team, switched to another team, and then ended up great. It doesn't happen very often. Sure.
DeMarco Murray. A lot of people were like, "Ooh, going to Chip Kelly's high-power offense."
It's
he
the
should
most
be the
fun to be excited about a great player switching teams. That's
Yeah,
fun.
but
That's why they get hyped too much.
Yep, I completely agree.
I've got a landing spot for Matt Forte that I'd be curious your thoughts on. Really good one.
All right, let's
A
hear.
really good one. Baltimore with Mark Trestman. Back in that system. He's a pass-catching back. They loved – there's not a better pass-catching back maybe than Matt Forte.
No, he set the record 2 years ago, but I don't see that happening. I think they've got Forsett under contract right now. They like him. He's definitely cheaper than Forte. And if you want an older guy who already knows the system, why would you go out and get Matt Forte? You've got an older guy and a young guy. I don't see that happening.
Because Forte is better than Justin Forsett.
Yeah, but you've got to spend your money. I mean, that's a wise team. The Ravens make good decisions.
Yes, they do.
And if you're going to have to spend a lot more to then cut Forsett and get
No,
Forte,
I don't. I
guess they're the same age, so
I think they can probably afford both. There's no way that Forte, in my opinion, is getting a big contract. So Forte is going to have. He should chase a ring, is what I think Forte should do. He's not. I don't feel like he's going to go into a situation where it's all about playing time for Matt Forte. Now, if he went to Baltimore,
then that's the Patriots.
Sure, but
Patriots just don't spend. They don't spend money.
That's what I'm saying.
They've got Deion Lewis under contract.
If he wants to take,
they just gave Lewis an extension. I don't think anybody's going to New England.
Yeah, he could go to Baltimore, but it's going to be cut because it's not like Forsett won't play. But I wouldn't surprise me if Forte, if he got there, if him turning into at least a somewhat of a featured back.
All right, I don't want to gloss over Chris Ivory, who did have a really interesting year. I will say that. The beginning part of the year, he looked like an absolute steal. He carried a lot of teams. He ended up 13th in consistency rating. He had over 1,000 yards this year. He was furiously annoying to play during parts of the year. I mean, your eyeballs told you for a few weeks as an owner of Chris Ivory, yeah, geez.
Dolphin game?
I should play Bilal Powell.
Oh,
I can't play Bilal Powell because it's Chris Ivory. He's a number whatever running. I should really play Bilal Powell. I'm watching this game. That was what was hard about him, is that Bilal Powell, when he was injured, Ivory was great because he got passing targets because he was on the field more. It was a strange game at the end of the year where they didn't use him. You have to wonder, what was going on?
That was bizarre.
Where they just basically, he came in, he had huge plays, and he didn't take any snaps. So he was a guy who was okay. He was a pretty consistent running back. He was definitely more of a 2 than a 1 in my mind, even though he ended up 8.
So let's say he's signed and he's back. There's no changes there. You're going in next year with Chris Ivory, Bilal Powell. What do you make of Chris Ivory? Finished the year as the number 8 running back. Definitely stronger first half to second half. Where are you ranking both of those guys, Chris Ivory and Bilal Powell?
That's a great question. I would put Ivory in the top 15 running backs if everything stayed status quo. The team's good. They're well coached. They like to run the ball. It's an annoying place to be, but I definitely put him in the top 12, top 15.
I would as well.
Getting him as an RB2.
But in a pure PPR, would you draft Ivory over
yes.
Bilal Powell?
I would still take Ivory, but I would go out and get Powell.
Powell seems like he's a Mike Wright kind of guy.
I like Bilal Powell. I always have.
Just because he's like Danny Woodhead, where nobody wants to draft him where he probably belongs because he's annoying. And you like drafting those kind of guys.
They're my favorite.
You're get them late.
Yeah,
and they'll give you production that's much better than – because where Ivory will go in that – so the hypothetical situation that Jason brought up, where Ivory will go and where Powell will go on normal leagues, Ivory's going to go way higher.
Yes.
Way higher. It doesn't even matter. In a average draft position of a PPR league, he's going to go way higher.
Yeah, you have. Well, this is what you have to look at too. Chris Ivory has been a walking injury type of a player. Now he played all 16 games, right?
No. Yeah,
no. Right.
If you're a fantasy owner, you remember the time he got activated and not given a snap, but
asterisk 16 games.
Still, you take one game out of it. That's pretty good.
No, he had a very solid year. We'll wait to hear if he was injured in the second half of the year because he was not the same guy.
All right, number 10 on the list is Latavius Murray. And by the way, I'm really excited about the Thursday show and getting to some of these tweener names because they're just so many question marks around them. It'll probably be a very interesting show. But number 10 is Latavius Murray. 266 carries, over 1,000 yards, only 6 touchdowns. He was targeted quite a bit in the passing game, 53 targets, 41 catches. That's very nice. You'll
great.
take that.
Yes.
And then he was 10th in consistency. He had 10 performances in the top 25. He didn't have any top 5 performances. And that's what you feel as a fantasy owner when you see Latavius Murray. You felt nothing that gave you an auto win. He was very much a very reliable type of guy, and he only had 1 dud week. So what are your guys' thoughts on Latavius Murray now heading into next year?
I love Latavius Murray.
Say that again?
I love Latavius Murray. He is one of my favorite guys on this list.
Would you get on one knee and Murray him?
I would love to Murray Latavius Murray. He's young. He is a big boy. He's got great size, which helps him hold up. Played all 16 games. There was a lot made about the fact that he was able to take that workload and run with it. Through the full year, he had 64% of the snaps. The last 4 weeks of the year, he had 76% of the snaps. Del Rio is a running coach. This is an Oakland Raiders team that looked to be getting better. You know, if it wasn't for Amari Cooper's injury, I think they get a couple more W's and they were closer to the playoffs. This is a team I think that's going to be better next year. They left a lot. Latavius Murray left a lot on the field this year. Remember those games where, he fumbled the ball and was not used. But coming into next year, if they don't if they don't go out and sign Matt Forte in some weird, wacky situation that flubs everything up there, Latavius Murray's a guy to me who is going to get the ball, is used in the pass-catching game, is on an up-and-coming team, is a young guy. I like just about everything with him.
Yeah,
he
but what
left
about
a lot
Roy
on the
Halou?
field. Goodbye. Oh, sorry. Roy Halou will not be on the Raiders next year.
But I bet Mike will pimp whatever guy gets signed behind Latavius Murray.
No. Wherever Halou goes.
Oh, you better believe.
There you go.
I love Roy Halou.
So, to me, Latavius Murray has a lot to look forward to. And the fact that he had low touchdown counts is kind of a good thing for me, because I don't think it was unwillingness. It wasn't an unwillingness to use him at the goal line and put in another back. That's not what we saw. We just saw the unpredictability of touchdowns and
a team that's growing into its offense and their offensive players. I mean, you looked up an interesting stat finding out Amari Cooper had dropped the 12th most balls in the league.
Yeah.
This is a
12th
team
percentage, right? 12th highest drop percentage?
He was the 11th highest with enough receptions. Yeah, he was good.
They're a team that at times their offense looked gangbusters, and at times they were figuring it out. So I think it's a good point. And the touchdown number, that jumps out to me, because if a guy's on the field as much as he was, the percentages say he'll get more opportunities around the goal line. They'll just happen. So that's a good take. And if you had Ivory back in the same position and you had Latavius Murray, who would you take?
I would take Latavius Murray.
All right.
Yeah, I think I would take Latavius at this point. And versus top half defenses versus bottom, he averaged 66 yards against both. So those are the type of consistency numbers you want to see.
All right, that does it for today's show. We're hitting that was the top 10. Our next show on Thursday, we'll cover 11 and to as many as we can get to, and we will also make our predictions for the conference championship round. So you guys get your thinking caps on, start to ponder as you will, and we'll see.
I'm thinking right now.
We'll talk about the playoff challenge too. See how you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Mixed results.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.